Flying Eagle Press presents Woman Spirit, read by the author Pamela L. Chubbuck.
Woman Spirit talks to Susan. Susan knew that her time of first bleeding was near. Her body was changing, and her mother had explained about menstruation. They had read a book together, and she had seen a movie in health class at school. A few of her classmates had started their periods, and most others, like her, were waiting with great anticipation for this new event that would happen in their bodies. Susan's best friend was Margaret. They did almost everything together and were like sisters. They had known each other since they were babies. They rode their bikes, swam in the ocean, and helped each other with homework. And that was good, especially because Margaret was better at math and Susan was better at spelling and reading. They had a lot of sleepovers at each other's houses. They shared secrets, wondered about life, and sometimes even talked about boys. Margaret had a really neat grandmother. They loved to visit Margaret's grandmother, and luckily she lived nearby. Margaret and her grandmother were Native Americans. Grandmother was a very warm, wonderful woman with gray hair and sparkling eyes. She was strong and soft. Susan knew this because sometimes grandmother would hug her. Susan loved being hugged by grandmother. She could smell the sweet, clean smell of her clothes, which had dried in the sun and fresh air. Sometimes grandmother smelled like wild primrose, and sometimes like moss and earth. Grandmother liked to dance, sing, and have fun. She didn't wear shoes much. She told Susan she could feel the earth better when she walked barefoot. They laughed a lot when they were all together, not about jokes or anything particularly funny. It was more like laughing with the joy of life. Susan felt very good being around grandmother and hoped she would grow up to be a woman like her someday. Grandmother showed them how to gather berries. All summer, when the sun was warming the earth, they picked first strawberries, then raspberries, and blueberries, and later blackberries. There's nothing like the taste of a ripe berry hot from the sun, bursting with juice and flavor. While they picked and later at home, grandmother told them stories. She taught them how to thank the berry bushes for growing and for giving them their berries. She told them about Earth's cycles and how wise the earth is. She told Susan and Margaret that whatever they needed to know, they could find out by watching and listening to the earth. She said they needed to be very quiet and attentive. If they were, all of Earth's knowledge would be shown to them. Did you ever listen so quietly in the early spring that you could hear seeds sprouting under the earth? She asked. Or the sap beginning to warm and flow in the trees? Susan thought, I'll never be able to be that quiet. But inside she hoped she would. Grandmother continued, Imagine hearing the heartbeat of a baby bird while it's still inside its shell. Grandmother also explained that sometimes the hearing was not with your ears, but with your heart, like a feeling inside or an inner knowing. Sometimes grandmother talked about spirit helpers. She said she got messages from the spirit world about life, and that she and Margaret could too if they wanted. And that seemed a bit strange to Susan, because no one in her house talked to spirits. They only talked about God a little while on Sundays. Was God a spirit? She wondered. Grandmother said everything had spirit, which was the same as life or energy. Trees, rocks, flowers, and all the animals of the world were important and had spirit. This was a little confusing to Susan. The stuff about spirits made her wonder. Somewhere deep inside herself, not quite in her consciousness, she remembered talking to spirits when she was a baby. Those spirits loved and protected her and made her laugh. As she got older, since most of the grown-ups did not see or speak to spirits, she forgot how. Now, from that deep place inside herself, she could almost feel that someday she would remember how to do that. Her heart had a longing, a wish, to hear the spirits again. They asked Grandmother to tell them about periods, menstruation. Grandmother said that she called her period her moon time because a woman's body had a cycle, just like the cycle of the moon. She said that being a woman is a wonderful thing and that the bleeding time was a gift from the Great Spirit that made women unique. Since they already knew having the bleeding time meant that the body was preparing for the possibility of nurturing a baby, Grandmother explained that the bleeding time for women came in their young adult and adult years, and that when a woman gets older, she holds her blood as it is not needed in the same way any longer, and this is called menopause. After bleeding stops for a woman, she is a grandmother, even if she never had children of her own. She's then called an elder. She is wise because of the years she has lived and the experiences she has had. The grandmother then turns her energy to helping all of her people. Susan thought this must be a very fine time of life and imagined herself being an elder in her community. Margaret's grandmother also told them that their bodies were wise and wonderful. Like the earth in her seasons and the moon in her cycles, a woman's body knew just what to do and when to do it, without a single thought. At just the right moment, it would begin its bleeding time. She said not to worry. There is nothing in Mother Earth's creation that does not work the way it's supposed to, she said. Your body is to be loved, cherished, and is there to give you pleasure. You can laugh, dance, climb trees, and enjoy the new feelings that your genitals are gifting you with, Grandmother said. Pleasure is what life is about. The spirits are happy when we have pleasure. She also mentioned, some people tell you not to have pleasure, but don't pay attention to them because they're afraid. They don't laugh enough. Then they all laughed, remembering the terrible frown the tense, tight, perfumed woman from the city gave them when they were having so much fun in the restaurant a few weeks ago. That poor woman didn't look like she ever had any fun. Grandmother explained that the time of first blood is a sacred time, a time to be celebrated. There are ancient rituals that our people have used to celebrate the beginning of a woman's bleeding time, her first moon. It is a time when women gather to honor the young ones who are entering their most physically creative years, she said. Would you young women like to plan a celebration to honor this time in your lives? Asked Grandmother. Susan and Margaret agreed at once. Oh, yes, they said together. Please tell us about your people and their way. Susan was excited. Grandmother smiled. We believe that this is the best time for older women to teach the young ones about being women, Grandmother replied. You may ask your women friends and relatives to gather in your honor. The older women each speak from their hearts to give the young ones the gift of her own life experience. It's very powerful. Could we have a celebration together? Margaret asked. You can do whatever you wish, Margaret, as long as Susan agrees. That sounds like a great idea, Susan agreed. Grandmother continued, suggesting that they could start planning their celebration now. It could be exactly the way they both wanted. Perhaps they would like to use a combination of the ancient ways and a creation of their own to make the celebration very personal. They liked that idea. They spent the afternoon at Grandmother's house listening to the old ways of the tribe and talking about how to make their personal statement as well. They wondered, when would it be? It was a very pleasurable, close time for the three of them that day. Sometimes Susan's mother was too busy with her little brother and sister, or worrying about cleaning the house or getting to work on time, that she didn't seem to have time to talk to Susan much. So when it was time for Susan to go home for supper, she exclaimed, "Thank you, Grandmother. I'm so glad I have you to talk to." "Any time, Susan. That's what grandmothers are for. And don't forget, you can ask for help from the spirit world and watch the earth very carefully, and she will teach you." It was some days later. Susan had thought about all that Grandmother had said, especially about asking for help from the spirit world. She still had some questions and curiosity and a little fear about what would happen to her when she began her bleeding time. She and Margaret were talking. What would it feel like, they wondered. Will it feel weird to wear a pad? Will everyone know? Will it hurt? Where would they be when it happened? "Boy, I hope I'm not in school," she said to Margaret. She had discussed these things with her mother and an older friend who had begun to menstruate. But, she figured, they'd really need to feel it for themselves to really know. Susan also wondered about the spiritual meaning of menstruation that Grandmother mentioned. "Hey, Margaret, why do we have periods if we're not old enough or ready to have a baby? And what if I don't ever want to have a baby?" Margaret said, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do 10 or more years from now. That's a long time." "Me too. Besides, it sounds to me like even if I do have a couple of kids, I'll have a whole lot more bleeding times than I'll have children. I wonder what use that'll be." "Yeah, me too," agreed Margaret. "Some people say it's yucky." It was a beautiful mid-August day. The sun was warm, the sky was very blue, and the grasshoppers were flying in the fields full of goldenrod and black-eyed Susans, which were Susan's favorite flower. Margaret had gone to town with her mother to shop for school clothes. That was all right. Susan had a real desire to be alone today. She decided not to ride her bike, but instead she wanted to walk to her favorite spot in the field near the river. She was feeling different lately, hard to say just how. A little more interested in what the adults were talking about, understanding more about life going on around her. And her body was changing. She felt a little more mature. She liked the way her breasts felt under her shirt as she walked. A few times when she was alone, she would lock her door and stand naked in front of the full-length mirror. She admired what changes her body was creating. "My breasts are small and beautiful. I have a little more curviness in my hips than I did a year ago," she observed. "And I like the downy, soft hair growing on my pubic area." She thought, "My body feels good when I touch it." She remembered all of this as she walked to her safe spot. She walked to her rock friend, sat down, and leaned up against her tree friend. She felt good sitting there in the afternoon sun, supported and safe, with the tree at her back. She looked at the huge rock. Susan imagined how much of life that rock had seen. Millions, maybe billions of years. How wise it must be. Grandmother had taught her that rocks have life and should be treated with the respect of an elder. They have been around for so long. Rocks are in the tribe of the mineral people. Hold a rock with love and respect, and it will tell you secrets from the ancient past, Grandmother had said. Susan felt connected to all that was around her. The earth underneath, the tree at her back, the rock and the beautiful river moving and sparkling as it ran over the rocks in the shallow place, widening and relaxing into a pool which reflected the pine trees along its bank and the blue of the sky and the white of the clouds. There couldn't be any more beautiful a day, she thought. Feeling so good and so connected to nature made her heart feel full and wide. A thought popped into her head. Maybe this is a good time to try to talk to the spirits. I'm alone. There's no one who might make fun of me. I think I'll give it a try. Susan didn't really know how to go about this new thing, but she remembered what Grandmother said. Be very quiet and sit with an open heart. Simply ask the spirits to come to you. Tell them you need help, and you will be open to their message. So she did. Susan sat for what seemed like a very long time. First she tried. She concentrated intensely. She could feel her body tense, her mind active. How do I call spirits? How do I open my heart? She thought. Nothing happened. Part of her said, this is really weird. Don't be a jerk. And another part said, just have faith. You know there are spirits around to talk to. Relax. Let go. Okay, said the scared part. I really want to. Then she gave up trying. When she gave up trying, she felt better, more relaxed, and like she could sense herself inside and outside of her skin, maybe 2 feet beyond, and it felt good. Susan noticed an eagle in the sky, and later a little green snake slowly moving through the grass. When she looked up from the snake, she couldn't believe her eyes. There stood a wondrous being, a woman, yet more than the women that Susan knew. She was beautiful to behold, and Susan felt very good and completely safe and loved in her presence. She was dressed in the softest deer-hide dress. Fringe and shells from the sea creatures and feathers from the sky creatures adorned the flowing garment. Her skin was a soft reddish brown, like the color of the rich clay of the earth. Her eyes were dark and full of deep compassion. Her hair was black, with flowers, seaweed, yellow canary, and bluebird feather ornaments. A green snake skin decorated one side of her hair. She seemed to shine with life, and she carried a birch bark bowl full of lush raspberries. Susan knew at once that this was Woman Spirit. Woman Spirit spoke to her without words. Susan understood everything more clearly than she ever had understood anything in her life. It was like telepathy, except it seemed like she was understanding with her heart, not her head. You are Susan, one who loves life. You have opened yourself to me, and I am here. Be joyful. I give you your bleeding time so that you will have creative power within your body. If you choose, you can someday help to create the life of a child. At all times, you can create magic and good things. Your red blood is like the raspberries of the fields, lush and juicy. These berries symbolize womanhood, vitality, and the power of healing and creation. Woman Spirit set the bowl of berries on the ground. All things you need to know come from the earth. Watch her and her seasons, her tides which ebb and flow, and the day as it follows into night. Watch the night sky for messages from Grandmother Moon. She has tales to tell you about quiet dark time and brilliant full light time. Grandmother Moon has cycles just as your body has cycles, moods just as you have feelings and moods. Your bleeding time follows a cycle like the moon. Watch the seeds as they sprout, eggs as they hatch, and all animals and creatures as they mate. A mother cat giving birth to her kittens, and you will learn about the miracle of creation. When you feel the quiet power of the sprouting seed and the full power of the ocean, which is Mother Earth's blood, you will know the true power you hold within you, dear one. Susan felt every cell of her body absorbing these wise words. She felt she was listening with her heart, her skin, and her mind. Woman Spirit continued. You have much to learn, so much fun to have, so much of the world to explore. You will learn about yourself, who you are, what you want, and what you need for your happiness. First, above all things, you will learn to take care of yourself. You will learn about pleasure and how to give pleasure to yourself. You will experiment and learn what kind of person you want to share yourself with. Meanwhile, your body is practicing getting ready for a time when, if you so choose, you can grow a baby inside. You are now not ready to care for a child, but your body is practicing. While your body is practicing, your emotions are growing, your mind is learning, and your spiritual self is becoming more mature. The beautiful woman standing before Susan held her arms out at her sides, so the fringe on her dress hung down and swung gently in the breeze. She smiled a warm, lovely smile, with the corners of her mouth turning up just slightly, like the sliver of moon when she is new. Susan felt her thoughts. While you are learning, having your bleeding time is an especially powerful and wonderful time. During your bleeding time, you are very open to hearing and feeling messages from me and from other spirits. You are then more capable of connecting within yourself the energy of creation from Father Sky and Mother Earth. You become the messenger open to hearing these messages and carrying them back to your family and friends. This is the special gift of being female and having your bleeding time. The energy center at the top of your head, your crown chakra, opens to the heavens, and your uterus opens to the earth. All of life comes from both heaven and earth, Spirit and Earth Mother. This energy is there for you to use for your own healing and for whatever positive, creative way you wish to use it. You may dance, sing, write, paint, or study for the good of all people and for the world. Woman Spirit continued. Allow your body to speak to you and listen to it. Feel when it needs quiet and when it wants to create. In your time of quiet, your spirit guides will whisper to you. They speak very softly. You need time to yourself so that you may hear them. All of this is your special gift of being female. You are very special and blessed by me, Susan. There is never anything to fear. I will be with you always. If you need a reminder, take this stone and carry it in your pocket. Also, you will know I am with you when you pick berries in the sun. She picked up the basket of berries with the grace of a willow tree brushed by a soft wind. Woman Spirit then took some raspberries from her birch bark container, crushed them between her fingers until the juice ran out, and touched Susan's face with the red juice, her cheeks, her forehead, then a taste for her lips. When you want to talk with me again, I will come, said Woman Spirit. Just call me. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Susan felt in her heart. I am very happy that you came. Susan glanced down and saw the little green snake slithering through the grass. When she looked up, Woman Spirit was gone. Wow, that was some dream, thought Susan. She licked her lips and was surprised to taste the taste of sweet raspberries. In her hand was an unusual reddish stone with white lines. the one she was given. Susan sat quietly in amazement. She touched her lower belly with her left hand, and it felt soothing. I guess I must have fallen asleep, like Alice, she thought as she stretched. Must have been a dream. Getting up, she felt a little stiff, but good. Susan felt she must have been sitting for a very long time. Guess I'd better head for home, she thought. A bird called, caw, caw, and again. Susan heard it say, look here, look here. Oh, that's silly. Birds don't talk. Well, parrots. Again, look here, look here. Something inside reminded her, follow your intuition. Listen with your heart. So she followed. The bird led her to a raspberry patch that no one had ever found before. The berries growing there were perfect, just ripe and ready for picking, fat and juicy, easy to pluck off the stem. Yum! Thank you, bird. You're welcome. Susan made a pouch in her t-shirt and began to fill it with luscious fruit. She looked down. Oh, I must have gotten berry juice on my pants, she thought, and she looked again. Blood. She pulled down her shorts, checked inside her underwear. Oh, wow, it must be my period, my first blood. She excitedly gathered a few more berries and started for home. To get home, Susan had to pass right by Grandmother's house. As she approached, she decided to stop in and take her some of these fat, warm, wonderful berries. Grandmother loves raspberries most of all, she knew. Susan knocked on the door. Come in, Grandmother called. Susan walked in. The door was never locked. On the kitchen table she noticed a birch bark bowl. Is that new? She said, gesturing toward the bowl. Is what new? Susan touched the bowl. This birch bark bowl. Where'd that come from? Never seen it before, Grandmother said. Well, may I put these berries in the bowl? Susan asked. Please do. Susan poured the berries into the bowl. Thank you very much, Susan. Oh, they are so ripe and juicy. Susan watched as Grandmother tasted one. And delicious. I'll put them on my cereal. Oh, Grandmother, I almost forgot I got my first blood, Susan said. Grandmother's eyes got brighter. Wonderful. When did it come? Just now in the berry patch. I thought it was berry juice on my pants. Grandmother gave a knowing nod, came over and gave Susan a big hug. This is a special time for you. How do you feel? Fine, replied Susan. Well, do you need a pad? Asked Grandmother. Well, I'm not bleeding much at all. I'd like to go home and tell my mother. She has pads waiting for me there. I think she'll be excited. Good idea, said Grandmother. Now all we have to do is wait for Margaret's first blood, and we can have the celebration we planned, said Susan. I certainly want to be there, said Grandmother. Susan skipped out the door, feeling light and good. Oh, Susan, Grandmother called to her, if I see Margaret, I won't tell her. I think this is something you should tell her yourself. And thanks for the berries. At home, Mother was excited, and she and Susan got out the pads together. They talked again about how Susan would care for herself while on her period. I'll tell Dad when he gets home, Susan told her mother. He'll be happy. Afterward, Susan couldn't wait to tell Margaret and ran out to find her. When she did, they took a long walk by the water and talked about what it meant to have a period. Margaret said, There's something I always wanted to know. She paused. How does it feel? A little strange, said Susan. I can feel some drips and a little wetness on my pad. I feel a little heaviness in my uterus and a little twinge now and then. Mostly, though, I don't feel much different. Susan did not tell Margaret about her vision. She thought Margaret would think she was nuts. Margaret said she was still waiting for her period, and Susan would surely be the first to know when it came. After my mother and grandmother, of course, she hurried to add. The next day, when Susan got home, there were flowers in a big box from the florist waiting for her. The card said, "Dear Susan, to celebrate this special time in your life, you are wonderful. I love you, Dad." A few months later, Margaret came to Susan and told her she had her first blood. "Great!" Susan hugged her friend. "Now we can have our Moontime celebration." They had been planning their party for a whole year, and all the women they loved were invited. Of course, their mothers and grandmother and Aunt Carol had special roles. Other aunts and friends would come too. Susan and Margaret were to be the guests of honor. When the day of celebration arrived, Susan awoke early with anticipation. She was very glad as she looked out to find the sun shining and the sky blue. Birds were chirping. She thought one said, "Good morning, Susan. This is your day." Susan walked alone before breakfast. In the grass, she noticed a spider web sparkling with dew. The web was Mother Nature's finest jewels. Nothing could be more lovely. A hawk circled overhead. She smelled the early morning air and felt the sun warming her face. "Life is so amazing," she thought. Later, Margaret and Susan gathered with their assistants at Susan's house to prepare for their ceremony. Their mothers were there. Margaret's grandmother was there, of course, and Susan's Aunt Carol, her mother's older sister. Carol was invited to stand in for Susan's grandmother, who had died 3 years ago. Susan missed her grandma very much. They had been good friends, and Grandma had helped her and been there when she needed her. Susan wished Grandma was here now to see her enter into her woman time. Each young woman had planned special clothes to wear for their ritual passage into the circle of womanhood. Susan had chosen a long dress of many bright colors. She and her mother had read that each rainbow color helped balance and nurture different parts of her physical body, emotional, mental, and spiritual self. Her mother and Aunt Carol had made a beautiful headdress of bright flowers and rainbow-colored ribbons. She had been letting her hair grow and did not tie it back as usual, but let it curl and fall willfully wherever it wanted. The results were that she and her hair felt energetic and spontaneous. Her mother placed the flowered headdress on her head and stood back to admire her daughter. The results were breathtakingly beautiful. Susan looked in the mirror. She felt strong and lovely. "This is the way a goddess might feel," she thought. Margaret had chosen a plain, long, red cotton dress. This would remind her of the color of blood and life. She had braided her black hair in the traditional way and tied the ends with deerskin. Her mother had placed a single hawk feather in her hair as decoration. The feathers signified far sight and courage for her journey to come. Margaret also was to wear a beautiful shell and quill necklace that had been passed down to women in her family for generations. It was used for special celebrations, and particularly for young women coming into their first bleeding time. As grandmother placed the necklace around Margaret's neck, she said a prayer for Margaret in their native language. As the necklace settled around her neck, Margaret felt the power of it. Tears sprang to her eyes as visions of many women ancestors suddenly appeared. She felt empowered by knowing they had gone before, and it seemed they were with her now. Grandmother kissed Margaret on both cheeks, and they embraced. Then she came to stand in front of Susan. "You are also blessed by the Great Spirit and by the Earth Mother on this day," she spoke with sureness. Grandmother now repeated the prayer in English. "May the spirit of life and creativity walk with you on your woman path. May you know the sacred power you hold within your body, and may you always use your power for the good of all people. Susan felt a strong feeling inside her whole body, like a shaft of light coming in from the top of her head and exiting through her pelvis and the bottoms of her feet and into the ground. She knew at that moment exactly who she was, more strongly than she had ever felt herself, and it was good. Grandmother seemed to know the power of that prayer. "You are a lovely woman, Susan," she said as she kissed both her cheeks, and they embraced. After a few moments, Grandmother announced, "It's time to include your friends in this ceremony. They are waiting for you." The room was decorated with flowers, plants, and baskets of fruits and vegetables, all the color of life's blood. The baskets were spilling over with apples, cherries, pomegranates, red peppers, and tomatoes. All their friends formed a circle and sat on cushions awaiting the arrival of the honored guests. As planned, Deanna drummed the beat of the heart, honoring the Earth Mother. The guests watched with admiration as Susan and Margaret walked into the room to the beat of the drum. They then sat in the center of the circle. As they took their seats, the women said, "Welcome, Susan. Welcome, Margaret." After a moment of silence, each woman told stories of her life and what it was to be a woman. "Being a woman is something to grow into," said Gloria. "It's a becoming." Alexandra said being a woman is a wonderful thing. "I have 3 beautiful children whom I grew in my body." Mary told her experience of sexual harassment at her job and how she had filed a complaint with the company. "It was very hard. No one believed me at first. Then all of the other women came forward with similar experiences, and we got that guy fired." Everyone applauded. Nancy, 71, said being a woman is different things throughout life. "It's important to remember there is a flow from one stage to another, and that each stage is important, and that no phase is better than another. From girlhood to maidenhood to motherhood to grandmother and crone." Margaret's grandmother exclaimed, "Live every day as if it were your first and last. Live with an open heart and a kind heart, and all good will come to you." Mia said, "Sometimes I get cramps and feel miserable during my period. It really helps me to take a day to rest, drink tea, and think about myself, or think about nothing. Just dream. I love to dream." Ellen talked about how difficult it is to be a woman in the modern world. "I'm not sure how to do it. I want to be a good mother and I want to have a career. I feel frustrated sometimes." "When I got my period, it was very different than it is today. So long ago that we didn't have sanitary napkins," explained the oldest of the grandmothers there. Marie was 92. "No one talked about menstruation, and I didn't really understand what was happening to my body. We had flannel cloths, which were folded and pinned to our undergarments. They had to be soaked, washed by hand, and then boiled. We dried them in the sun." Gloria told a hilarious story about her first attempt at using a tampon. "I didn't put it in all the way and wondered why it was so uncomfortable," she said, laughing. At 16, Gloria seemed wise and worldly to Susan. "Being a woman is about love and nurturing, and about the power of life," said Deanna. "And I don't want us to forget about women loving women and the power of that," added Karen. All the stories were nurturing to the young women and to those who had gathered there that day. As each woman spoke, it was like weaving a tapestry. Their stories created a design which formed the history of their lives. They also brought gifts. Each gift had a meaning about womanhood, some simple, some more elaborate, some serious and some light-hearted. A book about the goddess, a really beautiful pair of frilly underpants, a giant box of sanitary napkins which had been autographed in indelible ink, along with the age of the woman's first period. The names and ages read like a poem. Nancy Tompkins, age 13. Marie Johnson, age 11. Karen Whitehawk, age 16. Gloria Norcross, age 9. Alexandra, age 12. Mary Frances, age 14. Ellen Perry, age 10. Deanna Strongheart, age 13 and a half. Mia, age 15. Susan loved each gift. The most meaningful one was given to her by her mother as part of the ceremony. It was a beautiful old ring with a red garnet stone. It had belonged to her grandmother. Mother and Susan had planned the words they would speak to each other just yesterday. As Susan and her mother sat facing each other in the center of the circle, Mother spoke these words. I give this ring to you, my wonderful daughter Susan, who is the daughter of Ellen, who is the daughter of Elizabeth. I welcome you to the circle of women. Susan felt the spirit of her grandmother and pictured her kind face as her mother put the ring on her finger and heard the words her mother spoke. By now both mother and daughter had tears filling their eyes. Susan answered, This ring comes to me from my grandmother Elizabeth. Like this ring, I come through my grandmother Elizabeth and through my mother Ellen to stand as Susan and to sit within the circle of women. Thank you, grandmother. Thank you, mother. I accept my place in the circle of women. Every woman in the room felt their hearts open and were crying tears of sweetness. The Kleenex box made its rounds. Grandmother gave Susan the birch bark bowl which had magically appeared on her kitchen table. It was filled with raspberries. She also gave her some sweet grass tied with a red cloth. When she approached Susan in the circle's center, she looked deep in Susan's eyes, and Susan looked into her deep, dark ones. For a moment, Susan thought she saw a woman's spirit looking back at her. She thanked Grandmother. This is a very special gift. The celebration ended with feasting and dancing. A delicious cake with red frosting was consumed. Sparklers were lit and songs were sung. When Susan went to bed that night, she thanked the earth goddess for all her blessings. Some months went by. Margaret and Susan were taking a walk along their favorite path by the river. They realized that each were on their bleeding time. They were both very open and felt even more close than usual. They stopped and sat on a huge rock. The air smelled fresh with the sweet scent of balsam pine. A monarch butterfly drifted lazily from flower to flower. You know, Margaret, there's a secret I've been keeping from you, announced Susan. Margaret looked up. It was unusual. They never had secrets from one another before. Do you want to tell me? Yes. On the day I had my first blood, I went to the field where I found the new raspberry patch. I sat down and decided to meditate. I guess to sort of ask for a spirit to tell me something about the mystery of bleeding time. Then I had a vision of woman spirit, someone who told me she was the spirit of all women. She didn't speak the way we do, said Susan. It was like telepathy. I just knew. Susan told Margaret about woman spirit, what she looked like, and what she had said. "Wow," said Margaret. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I thought you'd think I was really weird, maybe crazy. I thought for a moment it was a dream, but now I don't think so. I was given some signs. First, a bird told me where the wonderful new berry patch was. Then a special bowl just appeared in your grandmother's house. She'd never seen it before. She gave me that bowl at our moon ceremony. And Margaret, she put raspberries in there." Margaret laughed. "What's so funny?" "Nothing's funny, just amazing and wonderful," said Margaret. "Guess what? I've been keeping a secret, too." Susan looked curiously at her friend. "I didn't tell you because I thought you might think I was weird." Susan sat up to pay better attention. "On the very night I woke up with blood on my sheet for the first time, I had a dream. In my dream, woman spirit came to me, and she looked just as you described her. She told me almost exactly the same story of bleeding time. In the morning, I woke up, and there was my period." They looked at each other. "Oh, wow," they said together. Then they hugged each other and laughed. "I think we're truly sisters," said Susan. "Yes, let's be friends forever. When we're grandmothers, we can tell our granddaughters about bleeding time and about woman spirit's teachings," said Margaret. They agreed. "Let's go tell grandmother about your dream and my vision," said Susan excitedly. "I bet she knows about woman spirit, too."
Dr. Pamela L. Chubbuck is a psychotherapist, wise woman, author, researcher, midwife, and healer who has been helping women heal since 1963. After raising 3 sons, the birth of her first granddaughter deeply moved her to write Woman Spirit, which is one chapter of her book, Passages to Womanhood, Stories of Celebration for Girls and Young Women.